Hey everybody, welcome back to Out of the Ordinary. I'm with cybersecurity expert Ramon, and I wanted to ask you some questions. Like, how big of a threat is cybersecurity really? Because I hear it all the time in the news.
Honestly, it's pretty crazy lately. Yeah, it's
Okay.
in the last year we've seen increases in the hundreds of percents for year over year in attacks against small businesses, individuals, large organizations.
So it's getting way worse.
Yeah,
And it was already bad.
It was already bad, and
Oh wow.
probably since clear back in 2014, 2015, it's just exponentially gotten worse.
And why is it like? Is that like foreign people or domestic? Like, who's doing it, or do we not know?
It varies. It depends kind of on the organization. Nation-state attacks, when
Right.
you have groups in Russia or China or Ukraine, wherever.
The ones you hear about in the news. Right.
Yeah, the ones you hear about in the news that are more
Okay.
like organized, state-backed groups are a lot more rare. But you do have a lot of organized crime businesses, really, that are based on cyber. You hear about
Oh,
groups.
wow.
Yeah, there are a lot of groups out there actually now that make it their business to compromise other businesses and extort you for money or ransom your business for money.
It's like a gang of nerds.
Yeah, kind of,
But-
for lack of a better word.
Yeah, except for they could be very dangerous. I mean, they could take down your whole.
Yeah,
I mean, I've heard of these big firms paying, hundreds of millions of dollars just to get their data back.
yeah, and the worst thing that we see
Which
now
is crazy.
is, SMBs, small and medium businesses, less than
Right.
500 employees, are becoming almost the prime target.
Why so?
Because there's still a lot of money to be made there. They can extort a lot of these businesses to the tune of millions of dollars, and they don't have the budget or the operational maturity to be caring about cybersecurity.
And also, they'd be like, I know I was a small medium business owner once, and man, it could be you're just really scared anytime anything hits you. And so, them not having a lot of specific personnel that would know how to handle that
Yep.
would be very scary.
Well, it's not just that. It's hard to staff those kind of people. I mean,
Right.
for an example, I did a post about this just recently, actually, about the pros and cons of bringing cybersecurity in-house versus hiring a vendor for it.
Right.
And it's really hard to justify a true cybersecurity staff in-house and keeping that knowledge in-house unless you have 200 plus employees, because you're paying, a proper cybersecurity professional a very high salary for what they do, and completely deserving of that. But once they've set things up properly, they're basically doing maintenance and occasionally fighting fires when somebody's email gets compromised or something.
Right.
And other than that, you're paying a very high dollar resource to not do what they're hired for because they're waiting for the next thing to happen. There's obviously lots we can do proactively, but there's only so much as well.
Sure. Real quick side note, I've noticed in this camera I'm looking a little bit like a zombie. I recognize that, people. There's nothing I can do about it. The lighting here is very weird, and I'm sorry.
That's
Okay.
all right. You probably still look better than me.
No, you look great. Okay, so do you have like a kind of a top 10 of like cyber tips or cybersecurity tips or something you could share with us or something?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that are really helpful, really easy things for most business owners and even individuals to do.
Oh, good. What are they?
One of the biggest ones, in fact, NIST, which is one of the national agencies that helps regulate cybersecurity and give out the kind of recommendations for individuals and small businesses to follow,
Okay.
is to move away from complex, confusing, hard to remember passwords.
Move away from complex.
Yes. So
That seems so counterintuitive.
it does.
Okay.
There's actually a lot of research behind it. So when it comes to password protection, what's most important is entropy. How hard is it to crack that password?
Okay.
And so it's actually funny, by forcing complex passwords, you actually remove a layer of entropy, because everyone knows nowadays that every password has to have a lowercase character, has to have an uppercase character.
Sure.
So they can enumerate and guess that there's going to be less options because they know you have to have some of those options.
Yeah, I was listening to a comedian one time, and he basically said half the audience's password at this comedy club. It was hilarious. He goes, now let me guess, it ends with an exclamation point. And
Yep.
everybody's like, oh! Anyway, so
Or,
yeah. Anyway, it's pretty
and
funny.
again, this goes into the same recommendation change. You had to change your password 3 months ago because it expired. Now you have 2 exclamation points at the end.
Yes. Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's another thing that NIST actually recommends against, is a scheduled password change. All these organizations they'll have, every 90 days you have to change your password. They actually recommend against that because of the exact same thing. You get people who just, I'm just going to add another exclamation point.
Times have changed, because I remember it was the opposite for a long time. So what's another tip that you say?
Well, to finish that one off, no worries.
Yep.
So the new recommendation is pass phrases. So you don't enforce complexity, and you want it to be as long as possible. So you pick 4, 5, 6 words that are easy to remember but are completely random. Horse, mule, battery, something completely...
Not Mary Had a Little Lamb, but that's the idea.
Yeah, exactly. Something that is easy to remember but still relatively random.
I like that. That's
and it's
good.
Easier to type out, it's easier for you to remember, and the longer it is, the more levels of entropy you add, because for every single character you add, every character the longer the password gets, they could be another lowercase, uppercase, or special character. So you add I don't remember the number offhand, it's 96 times for every character you add. It makes it more difficult.
So, I got you. So if someone was like, I was born in wherever.
Exactly.
It
becomes drastically harder.
All right. What else you got?
What else do we got? So next one that is drastically more important.
Tip number 2.
Tip number 2 is multi-factor authentication. Cybersecurity professionals have been harping on this for years. And the reason is it's so simple. It's an app on your phone, and most companies support it now. You scan a QR code. When you log in, you have to put in 6 digits, or it's getting even easier now. They push a notification to your phone, and you just have to say, yes, that's me logging in.
Okay.
And that's going to literally block 95% of it.
Yeah, I love when I have the 2-factor authentication. I love it. It's great.
And
so that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting scarier nowadays. They're finding ways around it, but it's going to block so many attacks, and it's so simple that you just do it.
Yeah, most
Don't
places have it
anymore.
now. Okay, so what about tip number 3?
So tip number 3,
trace.
numero trace, is software updates.
Do them or not do them?
Do them all the time.
Okay, so
it used to be this thing, and it still is to a degree, and especially really large organizations, of Microsoft Patch Tuesday, or whatever the cadence was for your software. It's people always wanted to wait a week, 2 weeks. Some of them were 3 or 4 months before they implement patches. Don't worry about it anymore. Just do the software updates.
Okay,
right?
do software updates.
It is so much more imperative that you do the update and keep yourself secure than worrying about if it's going to break one feature. Because, if you can't do one thing for a week while they fix a patch, no big deal. If you don't do the patch and you get ransomware, your whole business is on the line.
Totally get that. Okay. So, real quick on that one. Are people pretty vulnerable then if they're running an old OS that hasn't been updated?
Extremely.
They are.
Yeah, so the older it gets, the worse. Like Windows 7, nobody should be running on Windows 7 anymore unless there is some critical business application that you have no way of upgrading. And if that's the case, look for something else that you can upgrade to.
It's that serious.
It's that serious. Or find some way for that device and that function of business to be completely offline. I mean, put it in a room in the backside of the building that somebody has to go to run the application or something. Don't keep it on the internet.
Okay, number 4.
Number 4, backups. Backups are becoming cheaper and cheaper and very much easier to set up. I mean, as a cybersecurity org, there's a lot more that we want to do for you guys to keep, advanced backups. I'd love to be able to come into a business. I'll set up what's called backup and disaster recovery, which is a way more complex version of backup. So your server dies, we spin you back up in 5 minutes. That's the idea for us, to keep business continuity. But
5 minutes sounds nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So, but in general, keep some sort of backup of your data. Try and keep as much as possible 3 copies of data. Your live copy, which is what's actually running, some sort of local backup, and if you can, some sort of offsite backup. Keep it out and away, and even better, if you can use some service that uses immutable backups that can't be changed after the fact.
What about just for an average Joe, normal just person, not a business? Should they back up their Gmail to a USB drive or something like that, their data, stuff like that? Or
yeah,
not really?
something either to a local device, Synology NASs are a great solution. You're going to spend $1,000, $2,000 to get one.
For a personal person?
Well, this is more a little bit more business, or the individual that has a lot of data they want to, because you can back up your photos and stuff like that. With it too.
No, and a lot of people need that much storage. So I hear what you're talking about. And $1,000 to be secure. I did my own little Gmail one. It cost me $30 for a little USB drive, and I was out the door.
Yeah, and you can definitely do that. The nice thing about these is they have Synologies have a true backup agent and software that you can use that they don't charge you monthly for. So you pay for the device and you pay for your storage,
And you got it.
your hard drives, and you got it. And it
Okay.
does the backups for you. It's really easy to set up and install. But yeah, there's plenty of services out there that'll charge you, $5 a month to back up your email accounts, or $10 for unlimited storage backing up your laptop. There's
Gotcha.
lots of cheap, great options.
Okay, what about number 5?
Number 5 is email phishing. This one is so important, especially for businesses. Business email compromise.
Oh, this is the one you hear about where the government gets into trouble a lot.
Everyone gets into trouble. So this is, I think, one of the reasons we've seen cybersecurity grow so much year over year for a decade now, is we've moved away from the kind of traditional, I've got malware on your computer, or, I've done X, Y, and Z to get into your network. They're just going straight to the source and going to the users, and they're calling them, they're emailing them, they're pretending to be someone else, and getting you to click on links or give up information over the phone. And they're getting your password, getting your credentials, etc., just by getting them from you, tricking you into thinking they're someone legitimate.
Wicked.
And then from there they pivot, and they either...
And that can get anybody too, because
It can.
even a smart person that's really with it, you catch them at the wrong time when they're stressed out or super busy and they're not paying attention, or they're distracted, and boom, all of a sudden they're...
Yeah, and they get
let
more
it go.
clever every single day.
Sure.
And it's disgusting. Literally 98% of breaches today happen from some sort of phishing or
Email
social
phishing.
engineering.
That's crazy.
Whether it's text, phone call, email, it's some sort of working the human.
Yeah.
Because it's so much easier to break a human than it is a computer.
And it's also just a numbers game for them.
It is. It's like cold calling.
Yep, for sure. All right, number 6.
Number 6, third-party antivirus. Do you really need it today?
Yeah, good question.
It is.
Do you?
And not really.
No.
I mean, if you're
Your service provider's providing it, your hardware's providing it, your
Yeah,
OS
it's-
is providing it.
every OS comes with a pretty decent AV nowadays. If you have a large business, you have 20, 50 employees, even 5 employees, honestly, you should have a little more advanced antivirus to protect you. But for the average user, most of them out there are going to be more bloat on your computer than they're going to be protection.
Yeah, well, like I run my whole life off of Gmail and Google Docs, and that's it's all in there.
Yep. Yeah.
Google has got to protect itself. To protect
Exactly.
its customer.
So
Okay, that makes sense.
yeah, don't.
So don't.
There's decent products out there for sure.
Yeah.
But if it's just for antivirus and they're not doing, like Norton's identity protection or something like that, those are a little different solutions. But just antivirus on your computer, you don't need to go spend money
Sounds
on
a
it. As
little-
long as you're on a updated OS. You're on
Right.
Windows 10, which Windows 10 is going end of life in, I think, October of 2025. So people should move to Windows 11, stay
Okay.
on the most update Mac OS.
That's a
iOS on
surprising
phone.
one to me, is the no antivirus, but it does make sense because
Yeah, they're built in.
things have progressed.
It's funny. Windows is a great example. Their Windows Defender. We have tools that are run by 24/7 SOC analysts that they don't even add another antivirus. They control Windows Defender instead because it's just a good product.
Makes total sense.
Yeah. So
What you got for number 7 there, Ramon?
number 7, need to know basis. This goes a little more for businesses than it does individuals, but it does for individuals a little bit as well. And it's all about siloing information.
What does that mean?
So, especially in businesses, you have almost every small business has their little set of folders, right? Here's our HR stuff,
Yeah, sure.
here's our, general data
yeah, right,
share.
sure.
Yeah. So, most business owners don't know if you don't properly permission those, anybody can go through and look at them.
Oh, yes.
So, your general tech can go in and look at the HR files and see, hey,
who's,
what's going
who's
on?
making what, who's due for a
Exactly.
promotion,
And
who's going to get canned.
Yep, and not only is that
Uh,
important internally, but if they happen to get phished and someone gets their email credentials, someone who should have no access to anything, all of a sudden has access to the whole business for that
Right,
malicious
so
actor
make
to attack.
sure things are partitioned off
Yep.
and protected properly,
Yep, everyone should only have permissions to see what they need to see to do their job.
Yeah.
And it
Need to
goes-
know basis, folks.
Need to know basis.
Okay.
Same thing kind of with your own personal files, make sure only your account is set up to use them.
Right, no, that makes total sense. All right, what do we have for tip number 8 of 10? We're getting close here, folks. Hang in there. We're going to get you right by cybersecurity guy.
We're working on it. So this one is vendor vetting, and this is paying attention to who you're giving your money to.
What does that mean?
So, especially for businesses, but it goes a little bit for home users as well, who are you spending your money with and how are they taking care of your data? So you see
Right.
all the time with these breaches that it's, Google was breached or whatever company, and then it becomes a question of, okay, well, was my data breached, and how were they protecting my data?
Does this also mean sort of like, like I could feel pretty confident buying something online from, say, Amazon.com, but maybe not, XYZ123.com that I haven't heard of,
Yeah,
that type
absolutely.
of thing? Like
Yeah.
if it's not really well known, maybe it's the deal's saving me $5 on this product, and now all of a sudden I'm in big trouble. Is that kind of something?
Think about it, question it, especially if it's...
I could see that.
Yeah, especially, if you're a small business, asking another vendor to bring in a service or whatever, ask them how they take care of your data,
Right.
If you have logins or you're giving them...
Like maybe even who hosts...
Yeah, if it's a bookkeeper, you're giving them your financial information, how are they protecting that?
Yeah, I'd want to know, like, if it wasn't hosted by any of the majors, I'd want to know where my data was.
Exactly, yeah. What are their practices? Do they have any certifications around it? All that type of stuff.
Okay, so, right, certifications. Okay, 9 of 10.
9 of 10. So this one kind of goes back to our passphrase at the beginning, password management.
Yes.
As much as you can, use single sign-on for everything. So
really?
Yeah. So because what happens?
You don't have 10 passwords, just have one? Or what do you mean by the single sign-on?
So single sign-on is, when you go to, say, like a social page or something that says, like, sign in with Google or sign in with Microsoft.
Yes.
If you can, use that. Because...
Yeah, why?
So what happens...
I've always wondered that. Why?
It's a numbers game. So what happens is the typical user is going to really only want to have 2 or 3 passwords, right? And so they're going to use those 2 or 3 passwords on all 100 of their accounts. So now...
So why not just simplify it? Is that
well, it's a combination of simplify it, and now when somebody breaks in and gets your password, now they can go to those 100 different accounts using the same passwords. But when you find out, now you have to go to 100 different accounts and change the password.
Totally makes
When you
sense.
use a single sign-on, like Gmail or
You
something,
just
you change one
change
password.
them all.
Exactly. And then
that's so smart.
to go with that, those that don't support single sign-on, use a password manager. There's a dozen free ones out there. There's Bitwarden. You can get LastPass really cheap. 1Password is a great one. And they're going to charge you either free in the case of something like Bitwarden that's open source. You're going to pay $3 or $4. Let it generate passphrases for you. Let it remember them for you. You can keep an app on your phone. It integrates to your browser.
And then you just have to remember the one for that one.
Yep, exactly. You have one master password for that, and it remembers all your passwords for everything else. It's so much more secure, and you can have those long,
and you don't have to worry about
passwords. You don't have to think about it.
Okay, we have reached tip 10 of 10. Let's see,
10 of 10.
10, or is it this way? I don't know. Okay, so what's our tip number 10?
Last one is talking about VPNs and secure travel.
Okay.
So a lot of us travel personally for work. We're going through airports. We're working at Starbucks. Wherever we can get some Wi-Fi.
Right. Very common nowadays.
Very common. So
digital no-band type stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's great. It's a fun life to live, but it's hard to do it securely.
Okay. So what's the tip there?
So one of the big things there is always use some sort of way to anonymize your traffic. Use a VPN.
Like NordVPN I hear a lot about?
Yeah, you could use NordVPN. So the one misconception there that people need to be aware of is NordVPN's not like true security in the aspect of like no one's going to know where you went. If you're doing something sketchy or you go to a sketchy link or something, you're not going to be protected just because you're on a VPN. All a VPN does is privatize your data. So
right, but if the FBI wanted to go talk to Nord,
they're still
gonna
exactly.
Okay.
So it's not, they're still gonna know where you're going. It's just making sure that in the middle that data is encrypted, so somebody can't just jump in that's on the same Wi-Fi and see what you're doing.
Got it. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I always wondered about that. I didn't.
Yeah, it's kind of a misnomer that VPNs are just like this end all. My internet's encrypted and safe.
Oh, I think a lot of people think that VPNs. Once I'm on a VPN, it's like it's having like a permanent browser history destructo button.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's
what
the
people
case.
think, and that's not the case.
Yep.
Very interesting. All right, Ramon, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think you helped me and a lot of people out. Thanks.
Cool.